Today on The Real Story, the November election is coming up fast and a lot hangs in the balance here in Connecticut. From a U.S. Senate seat to Connecticut's House positions, our governor and our entire legislature hang in the balance on November 8th. There's a lot to break down with Connecticut's party leaders. Connecticut GOP Chair Ben Proto and Connecticut Dems Chair Nancy DiNardo joins us. Plus, a lot of attention on the Secretary of the State's race, election security and voter access front and center following the 2020 presidential election. This morning, Republican Dominic Rapini will break down his platform and why he thinks voters can do better here in Connecticut. It's all today on The Real Story. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on The Real Story. I'm Jenn Bernstein. Everyone is getting ready for the midterm election. It's fast approaching, just over 2 weeks away. Not only are there a number of executive offices to fill, but we are watching congressional districts very closely. Chair of the Connecticut Republicans, Ben Proto, and Chair of the Connecticut Democratic Party, Nancy DiNardo, join me now to talk about what's on the line this election day and their candidates on your ballot lines. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us, Jen.
Okay, as we said, less than 2 weeks out. I want to know how you all are feeling. I know there's a lot of energy. If you are watching television, every single commercial break is like 20 ads for politics. You can't get away from it. So Ben, I want to start with you. How do you think Republicans are doing so far?
We're doing great. As we look at, you can look at the polls, and the polls tell us that we're doing well, both nationally and here in Connecticut. But I think realistically, when we talk to voters, voters are tired of where we're at. They're tired of the Democrat Party rule for so many years. They're tired of rising costs. They're tired of unaffordability. They're tired of being the second highest tax state in the country, the highest energy rates in the country, the lowest GDP, actually second largest GDP decline in the country, and the lowest wage growth in the country. They get where we're at, and where we're at is a tremendously unaffordable state, which was brought to us by Ned Lamont and the Democrats.
Nancy?
Well, we must be looking at different polls, because our polls are showing that we're doing very well. And Governor Lamont has done a great job in Connecticut. I mean, he's the most popular and recognized governor in the country as far as Democrats. There are Republicans above him, but he is the most recognized governor. And he's done a great job. I mean, we have a great surplus, and he's cut taxes. He's cut car taxes, gas taxes, and he's eliminated the pension tax, and he's increased the expanded the property tax credit and the child tax credit, and he's just done a great job, and with the COVID and everything. And the rest of our candidates have also, our federal candidates have all done a phenomenal job. So I'm very excited about the race.
Okay, let's start with the race for governor, since you just brought that up with Governor Lamont. We had Bob Stefanowski on here, was it 2 weeks ago at this point, I think? And, he came close the last election. 40,000 votes is not anything to shy away from by any means. And so I'm curious to hear if you think he's done the job that he needs to do to win, because replacing an incumbent Democrat in our state, especially at a time of crisis, it's not crisis now, but during COVID, you have an uphill battle in some ways. So do you think he's done enough?
I think so, and we've got 2 more weeks to go. And again, I think Bob has put out an economic plan that I think will help turn Connecticut around, make us more affordable, provide people in Connecticut with more money in their pocket, less money going to the government, and has put in place, I think, will be putting in place policies that will actually have a vision for Connecticut beyond the next day. One of the things we've lacked in the state of Connecticut for many years, particularly under Democrats, is a long-term vision for where the state of Connecticut is going to go. We've been living budget to budget over many, many years, and as a result, we are now the bottom of every ranking that you want to be first in, and we're first in every ranking we want to be last in, and that needs to change. And if I can tell you this, if we elect Ned Lamont and the Democrats again, nothing's going to change. It's only going to get worse, if it's possible to get worse than number 50.
Let's talk about the impact that national politics is playing in the races here in Connecticut. Nancy, with everything going on, Roe v. Wade, with discussion on gun violence, I know that you all have kind of used that to remind voters of when they go to the polls what you all think they should be thinking about. Talk to me about that strategy.
Well, I think that is important. I mean, and if you look at what the Republicans have been doing, and Stefanowski and George Logan, they've all brought in, to help them raise money, Republicans who are deniers of the election, and they're bringing in extreme Republicans, which isn't reflective of Connecticut, and that says to me that that's how they're going to be going. And Stefanowski hasn't been completely honest in his campaign, and he says, well, I'm pro-choice, but yet he wants to change that
parental choice.
Yes, and so I think that again, I think Ben and I live in a different Connecticut, because I think Connecticut's going well, and we are moving forward. And again, it's because of Ned Lamont. There's more new businesses coming into the state, and I think it's been well. We're doing well.
Then give your answer to that. How has national politics played into what you all are doing, and how you...
Well, I think the old adage of all politics is local is changing to all politics are national, mostly because we live in an instantaneous news cycle, and most of that news is always national news. I think, Nancy, and so we're clear, Bob is not for parental consent. He has indicated he supports parental notification
of abortion.
Which is a very different concept, which about 75% or so of the people in the state of Connecticut support. So Ned Lamont is in the minority when he says he doesn't support that. Bob is with the people of the state of Connecticut in that regard. So, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at the people who have come in for us, as well as on the other side, the Republicans have a diverse set of opinions. We don't walk lockstep like the Democrats do. Remember, the Democrats are relatively simple and straightforward. Agree with us or leave in their party. And we saw that in West Haven when they attempted to take out a young black woman who was pro-life. They ran a white man against her who was pro-choice and ran solely on the issue of abortion. So the Democrat Party is the lockstep party. They do not like diversity of opinion, which again is not reflective of the state of Connecticut, because there's a lot of opinions in the state of Connecticut on a lot of issues. So at the end of the day, I think national politics is going to play a great role in local elections and state elections and gubernatorial elections. But at the end of the day, as we look at national politics and we look at where we are nationally, the Democrats have failed tremendously. Joe Biden has driven us into the worst recession that we've seen in over 40 years. He's driven our energy costs through the roof. He's made us energy dependent as opposed to energy independent. Our southern border is a complete sieve. We have fentanyl coming across. There's a story today that at LAX they just intercepted 12,000 fentanyl tablets in candy. We have Halloween coming up. They're doing nothing about that. These are all issues that the American public and the people in Connecticut are worried about, and the Democrats have completely failed on it.
Nancy, I know you look like you want to say something right now. Do you feel like your party excludes diversity of opinion?
No, absolutely not. And the thing is, if you follow like federal Republicans, they all say literally the same thing. And you don't see that on the Democratic side, but they all repeat the same word for word. It's amazing that, and I can't think of an example right now, but when you have seen it on TV, they say the same thing. And Republicans are known to be all lockstep, and people always complain that, Democrats can't get their message on the same page. And that's because we are so diverse and we have so many different opinions.
I mean, isn't it the reality, and it's a sad reality, but isn't it the reality of just the political machine in both parties? Because that's how you get leadership positions in parties, and that's how you move up in the rankings, is by kind of being in line and toting the party line in a lot of ways. I feel like our system is built in a certain way that doesn't necessarily encourage the independent person to come through and speak. At least that's what I've heard from people in the legislature who can't get certain leadership positions because they're going a certain way, or don't want to go and vote for the budget, the Democratic budget or something like that. I'm not saying just Democrats. I'm saying Republicans too.
I would suggest that the legislature is a different animal than the political parties. Yeah. A very different animal. We were just kind of joking about that a little bit before we came on.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at who's running on the Republican side, in our federal elections, We have candidates that are ardently pro-choice. Dr. Larry Laser, who is an OBGYN, Jamie Stevenson, former first selectwoman. We have Leora Levy, who is a pro-life candidate. We have Mike France, who is a pro-life candidate. So we have candidates across the spectrum. I would defy you to find a candidate on the Democratic side that disagrees with anything that's coming out of Washington or the Democratic Party.
Nancy, what's at stake with this election, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lot at stake because Mitch McConnell has said that, and McCarthy has also said that, you know, if they get the House and the Senate, they're going to pass a pro-life agenda. I mean, it's going to be an anti-abortion law that's going to be in the whole country. So Connecticut's law of pro-choice is going to be wiped out if we have a Republican Congress. And I think that's important for people to know. And they want to take away the woman's right to choose and the woman's conversations with their doctors. They want to impose themselves in it. So I do think there's a lot at stake.
A lot of attention on the 5th Congressional District, which is the district that was last Republican a long time ago, but was Nancy Johnson, right? What is it, 1990?
No, actually...
2006.
Oh, 2006. I'm way off, not
Right.
19.
Chris Murphy in
Chris
2006, I believe it was.
But it wasn't until 2008 that Jim Himes won in the...
Oh,
in the 4th
in
district.
the 4th district.
Right, so
Right.
Chris Shays was the last Republican in
Chris Shays was.
right, in the 2008 election.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, we have had some turnover with our congressional seats. So, you know, we've had a national spotlight in a lot of ways on certain races, especially the 5th Congressional District because of some of the polling it looks like right now. Your opinion on the 5th? How are you feeling with your candidate, George Logan?
There's going to be a new congressman in the 5th district on November 8th. George Logan will be the congressman from the 5th district come November 8th at 8 o'clock. No ifs, ands, or buts about it in my mind.
Nancy? Johanna Hayes?
Yes, absolutely. Johanna's going to win re-election. George Logan is not a good candidate, and he doesn't live in the district. Of course, now he's saying he does because he lives at his uncle's house, but even that wasn't true when he was saying it. And George tends to, you know, really walk a thin line on telling the truth, and so I think that the voters in the 5th know that. So I think we're going to be okay, and Johanna's going to win re-election.
I guess it's okay when the Democrats don't live in their district or don't even live in the state they represent. When Chris Murphy didn't live in the 5th district, when he ran and didn't even have a voting address in the state of Connecticut when he was a United States Senator. So that's okay for the Democrats. George does live in the 5th district. He lives in Meriden. He's lived there for some time now. And at the end of the day, when we look at I don't think Nancy wants to get into a conversation about who's lying because we know where the vast majority of the lies are coming from, and it's not on the Republican side. Ned Lamont continually lies about Bob Stefanowski's position. Johanna Hayes has lied about George In fact, George did a cease and desist letter that on an ad that was produced by Nancy Pelosi's organization supporting Johanna Hayes, that the ad was a lie, and that ad got taken down as a result of that cease and desist because it was a lie.
Well, the good news is we are having candidates here on The Real Story. So if you want to see what their platforms are extensively, we've already interviewed some of them in the big races, and we are going to be in the next 2 weeks also talking with more candidates. So make sure you check that out. Ben Proto, Nancy DiNardo, always good to have you both on.
Thank you.
So great to have you on in person.
Absolutely.
I know you were on with Matt Caron this summer, but appreciate you coming and talking only 2 weeks out from Election Day. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, on The Real Story, we are covering all the races to watch and sitting down with the candidates asking them the questions that you want answered. So who will be the next Secretary of the State? Dominic Rapini, the Republican nominee, joins us next. Stay with us.